Welcome back to the garage, everyone. Okay, so we've got the hood off of the RV. 2001 Coachmen sports coach. Manufactured quite inexpensively, I would think. The hood hinges are affixed to the hood with these blocks of wood that are encased in this fiberglass. This is the latch that holds the hood shut. This part here interacts with the latch. And the hood hinges bolt to these two blocks here. My initial plan was to lay in a piece of sheet metal over this with screws and JB weld and then bolt my hinges to that. I drilled a couple of holes here and here. This whole piece of wood inside here is basically completely disintegrated. And this one is in better condition, but whatever. I'll replace it too, probably. So I think really the current plan here is to make a cut along the top edge and peel this top layer of fiberglass out and then dig out all of that rotted wood, find a new piece of pressure treated wood. I've got some head scratching here to do. I'm kind of developing a fix for this as I go. Looks like I might have to teach myself how to apply fiberglass as well. Okay, more later. So we'll kind of just talk about the solution as we go along. But for right now, let's go ahead and saw this layer off. All right, let's see what kind of progress we made here. Hey, look at that. So, there you go. And that's what happens to untreated wood in the front of an RV, left to its own devices. That's really nice. Well, I guess the fringe benefit here is that it should be really easy to dig this out. All right, that's a little boring and mundane, so let me clean this mess up here, and we'll be back shortly. All right, we got that cleaned out of there pretty well. Got the remnants of the wood removed, and you can see we're left with a sort of a box of fiberglass. And we got some new pressure treated wood. We'll cut a square out and we'll place it down in there. So we have this, of course the surface is uneven. You know, it's higher here and then it's lower here, and then there's a trough right in there. So that begs the question, you know, how do you go about dealing with that? I think what they did was they just placed a piece of plywood and just rested it on these two ridges, as opposed to putting in a thicker piece of wood and then notching it so that it adheres to the surface of the hood. I was planning on using a pressure treated 2x6 and cut a piece and slap it down in there. So that remains to be seen what I'm going to do. I may have to notch it out just a little bit to get it to come up to this surface right here. And once we get it in there, we'll start to lay in some more fiberglass over the top. And we're going to use this as our pattern to retain where our holes used to be. Okay, so I placed some actually it was like, let's see, how was it? No, it wasn't like that. It's amazing how soon we forget. It was like that. Okay, now. All right, but it doesn't matter anyway, because I took these two lines. See, I drew these lines here to figure out where my holes are supposed to be. I extrapolated these lines back and made these marks here, and I extrapolated these lines back and I made marks here and here, and of course these two lines have marks here and these two lines have marks over here. Okay, so we can take that and then we can use a straight edge and come across here, and we know where to make our holes in our new block. So that's kind of the way we're going to approach that. So once we get the wood in place, we will come back in here with some fiberglass, and we'll make a new fiberglass top on this thing. And then we're going to put some recesses down in there And we'll take a piece of sheet metal and drill holes in it, and we'll weld some nuts to the bottom of it. And then we're going to take some threaded shaft, and then we're going to go down into it like that, so the threaded shaft will poke up, right? So when you get ready to put the hood back on the RV, you just take the threaded shaft and just put it in the holes on the hinges, and then put nuts and lock washers on the hinge, and boom, you're in business, right? So that's kind of the way we're going to approach this, but it's going to take a little work. But I think when we're done, it's going to be much better than the factory installation. All right, we got a piece of 2x6 cut to the appropriate dimension there. It's slipped right in there. It's a little bit too tall, but what we'll do is we'll get a grinder or something and trim the bottom of the wood along here and here to get it to sink in just a little bit further. I'm not too sure what we're going to put between the wood and the back side of the hood. The piece of plywood they had in here, they just set it in there. They didn't even have it affixed to the back side of the hood. All right, here we go. It's not going to look pretty, but I think it'll be pretty functional. So broke out the old favorite epoxy here. We're going to go ahead and affix this wood to the back side of the hood with some JB Weld, my favorite adhesive. And then once we get this thing in place, we'll do the fiberglass job over the top of this thing. All right, once that dries, it ought to be like the Rock of Gibraltar, wherever that is. So we got the piece of wood down in there, got some JB Weld between the wood and the backside of the hood, and I cut a smaller piece to fill in this gap here. It's about a 1/2 inch because the 2x6 just wasn't wide enough. Probably could have used the 2x8, but hey, you know, wood's expensive right now. So we got that down in there, and we filled in all the gaps around there with JB Weld and kind of smoothed that out a little bit. So what we've got is a fiberglass box, really, and it's, you know, it's pretty sturdy by itself. So we just increased the rigidity of that by, I don't know, 1,000-fold. But whether or not JB Weld is the proper thing to use in this particular case, I don't really know. I can tell you this, though. It's better than what the factory used, which was nothing. All right, we got the old grinding wheel out here, and we got a piece of 16 gauge steel we got from our favorite big box retailer, and we cut that out into basically this shape. Just got through grinding off the rough edges and getting the corners off so we don't cut ourselves. And I believe you can see that, yeah, nice. It's got a nice fit, right? So, all right. So up next, the immediate plan here is to, we'll go ahead and use our existing holes in this old template. We'll drill some holes here, and then we'll start to weld some nuts to the back side of this to manufacture some bosses for the hood hinge bolts. All right, here's what we got. Got our 2 holes drilled in there. And up next, we're going to go ahead and weld up a couple of nuts on the back side of each one of these holes, to which we will adhere the hood hinges. Now, we're using 5/16 hardware. This is grade 8, and these bolts are 1 inch. The plan here is to run this down. So what we're going to do is tack weld the bottom nut to the sheet metal, and then we'll tack weld both of these nuts together. Then we'll remove the bolt and finish up. We'll do both in the same fashion. All right, let's get busy. All right, it's going to be a little tight fit here. I think what we'll do is run a tap through this thing just to clean it out just a little bit after we're done with our welding job. So, all right, let's go ahead and finish up the welding job. All right, there you have it. We've got 2 welded up there, 2 bosses. And we have got those 2 holes nicely tapped with the 5/16 by 18 thread. So those are real nice now. All right, we're back. We got, hey, look at that. I went ahead and put in a 3rd boss and did a test fit on the front of the RV, on the front of the hinge. and works pretty doggone good. So up next, we're going to go ahead and give this thing a coat of paint. Not because we want it to look pretty, but because we don't want it to rust. And let me fish around here and find something that'll work. All right, I think we've got about as far as we can go today. Ignore that ridiculously horrible paint job. That looks pretty terrible, doesn't it? We got this thing squared away. All right, so we've got 3 threaded bosses on the back here. Again, 5/16 inch bolt size with 18 on the pitch. On the threads, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 holes cut in this piece of metal. Why, you say? Well, what we're going to do is, when we get ready to put this on here, we're going to bolt this piece of metal to the wood below with these 1/4 inch, these are 1 inch long, 1/4 inch wide lag bolts. I've reached a stopping point today. My fiberglass cloth is not here, and I'm still waiting on the mail to bring it to me. So I've taken this as far as I can. We're going to call this video number 1. So what have we done? We have basically removed the rotted wood and installed some really good wood and got it cut to where we want it. Got this part here filled with epoxy so that it's nice and solid. The next step will be to layer in some fiberglass over this and sort of recreate this box, similar to the way this is done. All right, now once that's good and dry, we'll cut these holes here out of that top layer of fiberglass so that our threaded bosses can go down inside there, right? So this will be covered in fiberglass, and when we get ready to lay this piece of metal in here, what we're going to do is we're going to coat this with JB Weld. You know how I love JB Weld. So we'll slip that guy down in there like that, on top of that JB Weld, and we're going to have pilot holes drilled in each one of these, about 3/32, something like that, I think is a proper size pilot hole for a 1/4 inch lag bolt. So what we'll do is we'll lag bolt this thing down in each one of these holes, and then of course the hinges will attach at this point right here. All right, folks, that's all for now. I can't do anything until the mail system brings me my fiberglass. So, as always, appreciate you guys stopping by the channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to be notified whenever I release a new video, don't forget to click that little bell down below. You guys have a good one, and remember to enjoy repairing your classic RV. Later.